Welcome to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm Courtney,
And I'm MK.
and it's Thriller Thursday. And how has your week been?
Well, hopefully by the time this podcast comes out, which will be on April 21st, I think.
If that's a Thursday, that sounds right.
It's either the 21st or the 22nd.
It's the 21st.
Okay, good. Hopefully by the time this podcast comes out, this has been resolved. And if not, I will need people to help us out. But so yesterday I'm just scrolling on TikTok and I see this ad come up and I watch it and I go, I'm like 99% sure that's my friend Jess. And I watched it like 3 times because I was like, no, like that, there's no way it's not her. So I texted her and I was like, oh my God, like just saw your ad. Like that's so cool. And she was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So I told her what it was, and she went and found it. And it turned out that this company, they are called Tomboy X. They are a queer inclusive underwear company that is, their brand mission is all about like supporting people and being who you want and living your best life. And like they're like allies, and they make underwear specifically for like LGBT, especially like non-binary and trans people. And she is a queer like content creator and a queer small business owner, and they straight up took her video off of TikTok, wiped the watermark, and put it and used it as a monetized ad without ever telling her. And it had been up for 2 weeks before I found it.
That's wild.
It's also their most trafficked ad on their whole page. And so when I texted her last night, she and her husband and me and some of her other friends and like a bunch of her like followers for her store and stuff like went and spammed their like TikTok and their Instagram and was like, take this down. And they finally did. After like 8 people reported their video, they've turned off all their commenting on all of their TikToks and all of their Instagram, and have not responded to any of her emails or like business messages.
It sounds like she has a lawsuit and they owe her money.
My dad was like, make sure you ask for 10%. Which, I mean, obviously, I already told her, I was like, if they don't answer you, I know lawyers. Like, this is not. And so then I posted it on the Death and Aliens Instagram today, her TikTok, like showing that she did not consent to them using it. And I'm just trying to get the stuff out there. And like one of the things that her and I said was like, it's totally cool to make like freely support other businesses. Like it's cool if you like make something and you're like, I'm supporting this business, but for them to profit off of your content and your body, not okay.
No.
Also, like PSA, if you have friends who are content creators or small business owners and you see their image out there somewhere, just double check with them. Like, because if I hadn't texted her, she never would have known that this was going on and that they were stealing her stuff. So like if you know somebody who's a content creator and you see something and you haven't heard about it from them, double check with them, because apparently this is not the first time that this company has done that.
That is insane to me. Like that is just asking for a lawsuit. Like,
yeah,
you have no right to their likeness.
And the fact that they like turned off all of their commenting and everything shows that they did have nefarious intent and they're trying to like get away with it. And basically like what Jess and I were saying is that the people that have done this, that they've done this to before, obviously didn't have the army behind them that we do, which like, and her and I, like her, I think her, like her TikTok for her small business maybe has like 700 to 1,000 followers. Like we're not even big.
Yeah.
The podcast, I have like what, like 70 people who listen to it. Like we're, neither of us are massive, but we already have that many people behind us. And I just feel bad for all of the people who this has happened to that didn't have people to step up.
Right.
So that is my current crusade, is to.
I am an attorney. I know how this works. I will not give legal advice on our podcast, but I will just say I do understand.
I already told her. I was like, I know people. I will. Yeah. So
I hold a grudge.
As we learned on Sunday, Courtney can hold a grudge for literally ever.
So,
and I just feel bad for her because like she is a painter. She does like watercolors and stickers and stuff, and she like is a painter, and she couldn't even like work today because she was so angry and so upset. Like she was like having trouble, and she's like, I'm already struggling financially.
Right.
And the worst part is it's a brand that she supported in the past. Like she was like, if they had just reached out to me, like the reason they were able to use the video is because what she's wearing in the video is one of their bras. And she was like, if they had just reached out to me and like asked me and like credited me and offered me like even just like some underwear, not even necessarily money, but like it didn't have to be this. It's the fact that they like made it
about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're a $25 million company. They can afford to pay $1,000 to a model. Like that's not
right. Yeah, that's wild.
So support your friends who are small business owners and content creators, and make sure that the corporations with the money are not trying to fuck us over because they can't get it together.
Stand up to the man. That's our message today.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's where, I mean, I'm really, really hoping that by the time this comes out, they will have resolved this issue. But that doesn't mean that the looking out for your friend's back part of it isn't still true, because like
it doesn't mean that you should
like because maybe
somebody else still
because like maybe Tomboy X will have resolved this and apologized, but how many other smaller corporations are trying to use even smaller content creators to do the work for them?
Yeah, and if they've done this more than once, then like they can be forgiven but not forgotten.
Yeah.
So remember that.
That's my soapbox for the day.
Excellent.
One other thing, and this one does relate to the podcast. The girl who plays Bradley on this show got married this weekend.
Oh,
to Brooklyn Beckham, aka David Beckham and Posh. Yeah, David Beckham and Posh Spice's son. Yeah. Their wedding was this past weekend.
Oh, how nice! Yep. Happy wedding! Congrats.
That's my only news.
That's nice.
Also, Gilbert Gottfried died, and I'm not okay.
Oh gosh, I don't even want to talk about it. I'm upset. It's Wednesday, and I've had a week.
Yes, you have.
Monday, other than the whole COVID stuff, aside from that, I've had other things happen. Monday was my dog Sadie's birthday.
I saw that.
And I learned that she's looking at me now, but I learned that Ben & Jerry's makes doggy ice cream.
They do. It's funny because you posted that about Sadie, and then yesterday morning, Teresa posted it about her dog, and I was like, everyone's feeding their dog this ice cream.
And she loved it. And so I got her that, and I got her this bowl that says happy birthday on it, like this new little like stuffed animal. I went overboard, but I was very excited. I was very tired when I was shopping. So that was very exciting. Then things went downhill. I don't know how many of you are in New York or are plugged into the news, but there was a subway shooting yesterday and 29 people were injured. It seems that they're all going to be okay. There were like 5 people in critical condition, but they were stable by the end of like workday yesterday.
And the shooter was caught today.
The shooter was caught today around 3:00. So they did catch him, but it was very stressful for everyone involved. I had friends, who live in Brooklyn that were going back to Brooklyn, and we were trying to like, what if we take a car instead of taking the train? Because all the trains were backed up. The ones that were running were backed up. And so I ended up just walking home yesterday, it's a 45-minute walk for me. So like not the end of the world, but like my friend was just going to pay $100 to take an Uber because she lives in Brooklyn and she couldn't even get an Uber to come pick her up. She couldn't find a cab that was empty. So she ended up like taking a train at Penn Station. And like, she said there were no police there, but they were like other places. Like they were in Long Island on their trains. Like it made no sense. And but he was caught today, thankfully. And yesterday was kind of a stressful day. And I fell asleep at 8 o'clock because I was exhausted from COVID and exhausted from stress. And I'm very glad that they called him today because, and they called him in Lower Manhattan, which is where they have like a ton of police protection, like in the subways. So, like that was not his smartest place to hide out, but I'm glad he went there because, you know, that means they called him.
Yeah.
So, stressful things have happened. Be careful. Crime's up a lot with since the COVID has effectively ended. People are back to their normal routines, and crime has gone up. So just be aware of your surroundings at all times and be careful. You should also be careful watching Bates Motel.
This episode was a wild ride.
Oh my gosh, the whole thing from start to finish. We watched season 1, episode 6 of Bates Motel, and it was just called The Truth. I was like, all right, we're about to get some truth bombs here. So, and it premiered on April 22nd, which is Caitlin and Jamie's wedding anniversary.
Yes, it is.
But in 2013, which was not the year they were married.
Nope.
And it has the highest rating so far. It is 8.7 out of 10.
Nice.
And like, that's fair.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was
a good episode.
Yeah.
I watched it this morning at 6 a.m. It was very good.
I watched it at like 2:30 in the afternoon today. So
yes. We had the same writers. We had a returning director, Tucker Gates. He directed Nice Town Norma, whatever Nice Town you
picked Norma, yeah.
Thank you. And What's Wrong with Norman. So like 2 other good episodes. Yeah. I mean, they've all been good episodes, but like strong happening episodes.
Yeah.
The song on this day, number 1 song, is one of my favorite people, but not necessarily one of my favorite songs of theirs. When I Was Your Man by Bruno Mars.
I do love that song, actually.
I mean, it's a great song, but out of all of his songs, it's not one of my favorites, but it is a good, I mean, I love Bruno Mars, so like, it's a good song.
Yeah.
And then the number 1 movie was Pain and Gain, which I don't know if you've heard about it. I have not seen it. I have forgotten everything I knew about it, people-wise. But it's based off a true crime that happened in Florida. It was kind of scandalous, the movie coming out. I don't remember exactly why, but I believe it was Sinisterhood covered the case and did a really excellent job on it. It was about like money laundering and then also like murder and stuff. It was wild.
It was Mark Wahlberg, The Rock, and Anthony Mackie.
Yes. Those were the people in it. Yeah, so I'm not surprised it was top rated.
Yeah.
I just haven't seen it. The only thing that happened on this day is sad. Richie Havens died. He was a songwriter. He did Here Comes the Sun, I think. A songwriter? He was in the music world and he was involved in Here Comes the Sun.
Okay. I'm so sorry, Mr. Havens. I have no idea who you are.
Well, he's kind of a big deal, but it's okay. We didn't have any like guest stars per se, so I just decided to talk about Mike Vogel because we haven't yet.
Okay.
We vaguely talked about him. He played Officer Shelby, and he was from Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. But he also had some big credits. He was in Under the Dome, the Stephen King show, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the one from 2003, and The Help. Couple of fun facts. His wife's name is Courtney, and she's a former model, so basically me. He has 2 pugs, which I think is cute. And ties us in with our Sci-Fi Sundays. He was the runner-up for the role of Kirk in Star Trek in 2009. So
I can actually see that.
I have not seen Star Trek.
So, okay, here's the thing about Star Trek in 2009.
That was the film that came out with like the popular cast, right?
Yeah. So the thing about the Star Trek movie in 2009, and this is a conversation I had at work with one of my coworkers this past week. And if you are a big fan of Star Trek, I apologize. I think that the casting of the movie was stunt casting in the sense that they took pictures of a young William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy and George Takei and said, who looks like them? They didn't think about the acting ability. They didn't think about the characterization. They didn't think about what the movie was going to be about. They just said, who looks close enough to these characters that we can sell that this is the same character? And that's how they cast the movie. Because Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto are both phenomenal actors, but were not correct.
Yeah, I was going to say they picked big names, but I haven't watched it and it didn't make sense to me.
Yeah. So I 100% believe that they literally took pictures from the 1960s and said, who looks like this person enough that people will buy that it's the same character? And Mike Vogel does have the same really pretty eyes that a young William Shatner had, and I can fully buy him being second place to Chris Pine because that's how they cast the movie.
Interesting. Well, I found that.
And that's entirely a theory. I don't know that they did that, except for that's the only thing that makes sense for how they cast that movie.
Right. Well, I think I got all of the intro stuff. I was taking notes when I was leaving work, and I couldn't remember everything I was supposed to do. So if I forgot something, sorry about it. But we start this episode. We pick up the second we left off, it seems. She has literally just walked out of the room and sat in a chair. Like, that is all that's happened since we saw the last episode.
I wrote, damn, Norma, you okay?
She is not. And we see that Norman's trying to calm her down and like talk to her and be like, everything's fine. And then he's talking to Emma and she's like, we got to get her some water. We got to do this. And he's like, no, she's fine. And then Emma, as a reminder, they had just gotten the girl, in case you've forgotten, they had just rescued the girl that they said they found in the Mega magazines from the boat that was Keith Summers. So now they're discussing that outside the hotel. And Emma has a one-liner that is very clear foreshadowing.
I wrote, oof, poor Emma, the foreshadowing in that line is rough.
Yeah. She says, a guy you were really into turning into a monster like that. Like, she was like, I can't even imagine. Like, and I was like, if you didn't know. Because, I mean, I guess if someone went into base, I'm trying to watch the show from a standpoint of maybe this came out for people who had never seen the original. Because it was 2013. The original was 1960. While it's definitely like a cult classic, it is like typical horror film. It's possible those people had, I mean, I hadn't seen it, but I also didn't watch the show because I knew it was associated with the movie.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, maybe they're trying to go in the direction of like, if you've seen the movie, you know it's about, we're going to make it really obvious and like show you that you're here for what you want. But if you haven't seen it, it's just like a subtle one, maybe. I don't know. I try to look at it from, I can't imagine no one knowing this movie.
Right.
Is my problem. But I really think there probably were people that didn't know this movie when this came out.
Well, I think my sister said that she still hasn't watched the movie. She's watching the show with us, but has not seen the movie.
And does she know anything about the movie, or?
I mean, she has the vague idea that like he's crazy.
But she like goes in knowing like Norman's not a good person,
right?
And so I just like, I'm very curious if you're watching this for the first time and haven't watched any of the others. Let us know if you like went in knowing he was bad, because I'm just curious what people know and don't know. And then Norma has decided she's going to go talk to Shelby, and she jumps in the car.
I wrote,
And
where the fuck are you going?
yeah, she's way too like hyped to go visit him right now. She
No.
needs to cool it for a bit. First of all, she shouldn't go visit him anyways, but she also would need to cool it before she does anything. And Norman just like leaps through the car window and they're like spinning in circles and like I'm like, oh my gosh, they're gonna hit the sign.
Emma's face watching their car spin around the parking lot was my favorite part of the
Emma's
whole
face
episode.
watching the car was also my face watching the car. I was so concerned. I was like, and I like obviously it's TV, but I was just like, what is happening? And I also just like I wonder how Norman is being so rational in this scene. Like, I mean, he's saying things obviously Emma's like we should go to the police, and he's like, no. And I'm like, okay, that's not what like a normal person would say, but he's very calm about it, very rational. Right. And I was like, the only thing I can think of is that like he believes Norma is going to kill him, and so he's okay with it. Later, I just figured
Norman Bates, sane and reasonable.
Yes, and it was very strange. But
I don't know that he knows that going to the police means turning Norma in again.
No, absolutely. And like I don't think it was out of character. No. I think it was just strange to watch. Yeah. That's more what I meant. And like that's one thing this episode did really well was show Freddie Highmore's range from sane to completely not.
Oh my God, so good.
And I think that's one of the reasons that they chose to like have him so sane and rational in the beginning was to show that like dichotomy between the two. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was excellent. So then we go to Dylan, and he is talking to who I assume is the next level boss, but I think he's like 2 bosses up. I'm slowly trying to figure out this hierarchy and what's happening, and I will. So help me God. So this guy's name is Gil, and he's telling him what happened. And as you mentioned last week, he's very proud that he has like killed this guy. Like he's like, you did it, you stepped up.
I said I knew Dylan was going to get rewarded for killing that guy. I knew it.
You did. You were absolutely right. And he tells him where he can go take the truck to be burned. And then this random guy shows up, and I was like, who is this? Apparently his name is Remo.
Remo, yep.
And I was like, that's definitely a nickname. Like, I don't know, but that's definitely a nickname.
Maybe. You hope.
But like, I've never heard that name before. Like, I don't know.
No.
So I think I'm in the hierarchy. I believe that it's like Gil, Remo, and then Dylan. And I think there's more.
No, but here's the thing. That conversation that they had was that Remo has been working for Gil for 23 years. Mm-hmm. So longer than Dylan's been alive.
Right.
But Dylan, because of what he did for Ethan and killing that guy, he got bumped up in the hierarchy, and Remo is to Dylan what Dylan was to Ethan. Dylan's in charge in that pairing now. Remo was like, Dylan was like, I'll be like, you have to know, like, I'm good. I got Ethan's back. You won't be upset that I'm working for you. And Remo said, no, I'm working for you. So Dylan is climbing the ranks.
Yeah.
Remo's clearly not a great partner if he's been working there for 23 years and he's under Dylan.
True. I think somehow I missed that little thing, but also this is where we learned Dylan's 21. I don't think we knew his age before now. I mean, we knew he was older.
We knew he was older than Norman, who is 17, but we didn't know exactly how old he was.
Right.
But also he's drinking all of the time, so like I hope he was 21.
I was thinking he was like 23, 24. So I definitely knew he was over 21, but I didn't know like he was 21.
Yeah.
And then we go back to the Bates Motel, and Norma is taking care of Jal, which is nice of her.
Except for, I don't know, it felt weird. I was like, I don't like that look in your eyes, Norma. I did not feel comfortable with her being the one taking care of Jal at all.
I have a lot of conflicting feelings about Norma this episode. I was okay with her taking care of Zhao, but
I feel like every episode I have a different person that I am more concerned about. Like my whether Norma or Norman is the problem literally flip-flops every episode for me.
absolutely. Yes, and I think that's one of the great things this show does. Huh. Okay, I'm sorry, my dog is like deciding if she's gonna jump on the couch or not.
It's okay.
So then but this is like the next morning and Emma's still there, and I was like, does her family not care that like she didn't come home, didn't call? And then Norma's like, do you want me to call your mom? And I was like, what is happening? And I mean, obviously she's like, I don't have a mom, I blah blah blah,
Yeah.
like mom left. But I was like, this is a good conversation for like everyone to know your backstory. But this does not change the fact that you weren't like, oh, I should tell my dad like that I've been out all night and everything's fine. Like
There's something deeper going on with Emma and her dad. I'm telling you.
Oh, for sure.
But also Emma and Norma bonding, creepiest thing of the whole episode.
Yes, I was very uncomfortable with that. Because I always expected Norma to hate Emma.
And I think she does. Like that's what bothers me about it is I think she does still hate Emma, but like the fact that she's able to just like turn on being a mom like that.
Well, I agree that was weird that she could just turn on being a mom like that. But it was also like, I think she pities Emma.
Yeah.
And that's different than like not liking her.
True.
And so that's kind of where I am with that. And then so Emma's like freaking out still, as she should be, because that's what makes sense.
Yeah. And
Norma and Norman are just like hella chill, and they're like, and I was like, they're just ready to kill him. I was like, that's all it is. Mm-hmm. And but why does this episode start with me liking Norma? I was like, this is so strange.
Yeah, the problem is I never stopped liking Norma this episode.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
I wanted to be mad. Like I keep being like, I don't like the look in your eyes. Like, what are you doing? This is creepy. But truthfully, like it isn't. It's just creepy because it's not creepy. Like,
right.
I feel uncomfortable because she's other than the little freak out with the car, which was a little much.
Right.
Other than that, she didn't do anything that insane.
And even the little like freak out with the car was like over the top, but I'm not like super. I did like
if I found out that the guy that I was like dating was in charge of a sex slave like ring and chaining small Asian girls in his basement, I too would probably drive my car into something. Like I can't say that her reaction was over the top. Like
yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I just put at the end of this page, I was just like, is this show gonna make me psycho? Like now I'm concerned about my own mental health going forward because I can't decide who I appreciate and who I am nervous about.
Yeah. Everyone makes me nervous.
And this is where we learned that they are not just planning to kill him per se, but that they're not going to the police because they have to get the belt back.
Because
and
they
that
can't.
Because
they can't turn him in until he doesn't have anything on them.
Right. And that made so much more sense to me. And
then
yes,
the tingle in my lady parts in the next part of this scene. When Dylan just walked in and manned the fuck up and took charge of that situation, I was like, absolutely.
So I have a comment before that, and I really thought you were talking about that part of the scene, and I was like,
no, sorry. Only Dylan makes me feel that way.
Gotcha. Yes, that is acceptable. No, when Norman and Norma were sitting at her vanity, and she was like putting on her makeup and stuff, and she handed him her lipstick, I thought he was going to put it on, and I was like, is this the beginning of us actually seeing like where things go? And then
God. That would make your face at my comment.
Yes, that's where I thought we were. I was like, oh God, that's not good for you.
No.
Got to get you in therapy ASAP. But it's okay. It's okay. You're all right for now.
We're good.
And but he's still trying to protect Norma. Like, as much as he hates her and as much as like, he's like, I have to do what's best for Norman, which is protecting Norma too. Yeah. And it's like, he doesn't even think twice about it.
And he walks in and he's like, all right, get in the car. Show me where the boat is. Wipe your makeup off. And I was like, yes, daddy.
Yeah, he was. I loved the take charge. And we learned that he got a beach bungalow, which was fun. He said no crazy people allowed.
2 bedrooms.
Yeah. And he was trying so hard to take care of Norman. Then they're at the boat and they're searching. And I was like, man, I hope they find it. And I really thought they weren't going to. But alas, they did. And so that was nice. And then he just turns and he's talking about like Norman moving in with him and all this. And Norman's, kind of on the fence, and he just turns around and looks at him and he's like, Norman, how do you think your father died? And I was like, we're going there this episode. All right. Yeah. Yes, I am ready for the truth.
Tells him that he's like, no, she definitely killed your dad.
Yeah. And this is where I figured out the end of the episode.
Oh, me too.
So I started taking notes about that, but I said, this is also like, I think one of the things I said, I was like, I hate Norman, which I was wrong about, but I'm really trying to, I'm so sorry, I'm talking in circles, but I'm really trying to place him and when he starts turning into Norma, if it's before or after she dies. Right. And so I was like, maybe he was already doing it then. He was not. But no, I thought maybe like,
yeah, I think that they're doing his psychotic break in a different way than the book does. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think they're just taking it slightly differently.
Well, I mean, they have to, and it's before, and like the book also, like, we don't know anything until after, like, Norman's dead. And so, like, we don't know when it started.
Right.
So, like, I just keep trying to guess when it started. And so far, I've been wrong every time.
I will say I did know something about this episode beforehand, but it's because I keep doing dumb things where I see how many episodes people are credited for on IMDb.
You gotta stop doing that.
I know. That's how I spoil everything. Like, I knew this had to be the episode that Shelby dies because
stop looking at IMDb.
Because he was.
Why are you even looking at it?
Because I was trying to figure. It was when I was trying to figure out about the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants thing. When I was looking at him because I knew him.
Yeah.
It said 6 episodes. So I go, okay, well, he's going to die in episode 6. Good to know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it seemed pretty obvious from the way the storyline was going.
There was no way that they could stretch it out anymore. But like last episode, I thought she was going to kill him. But then I knew he had to be in the 6th episode. Right. So like.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't look at any of that. I don't look at how many episodes they're in. I avoid as much as I can.
Which is more intelligent way to do this.
Yeah. And I think that was next scene. So then we go back to the motel and we see a car pulling up to the house. And I was like, oh, good, they're back. But nope. It was shut. And I just put, oh, no.
I was so mad at him that I never wrote up Deputy Hottie this whole episode.
Me either.
I just called him Zach. I was like,
I called him Shelby. And I, again, felt bad for Norma. And
I did too, because she like clearly did not want to see him. And she was like, I thought we weren't supposed to be doing this. But then she like knew that she had to like go along with it to get him to like stay long enough to cover for the boys. So like the fact that she was like whoring herself out to protect her son, I was like, oh.
I know. And it was just, it was cringy. And we go back to the harbor.
Mm-hmm.
And Dylan's like throwing it into the harbor. And I was like, I felt like Norman was right. He's like, how do you know they're not going to find it? I was like, I get that it's not going to like rise to the surface, but the amount of things that keep going into this harbor that they keep pulling out, I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up like dredging it one day and found it.
Well, I mean, at the end of the movie, they dredged it and found everything.
Exactly. And so I'm like, I agree with Norman. Like, he's being rational again. I would. I mean, you got to get rid of it, but I don't think this is the way. And Dylan is just like so matter of fact about it.
I mean, but to Dylan's defense, it's not the same as like a body that could float or could attract like fish or anything. A hammer thrown to the bottom of, especially thrown to the bottom of a place that has boat traffic, so the water moves a lot. You're not going to find that hammer unless you're looking for it.
Right. So he's not wrong, but I'm wary of this harbor now.
Correct.
And now we go back to the motel. And I will say this was one time where Norma felt a little out of character. I know she was doing it. She had to be milder and just kind of like put up with whatever was happening. But at the same time, she's never done that before. Like, and he was more aggressive than he ever has been. But every time he's done something that's made her mad, she has snapped at him. And she is like,
I mean, but she knows she can't. Like, she's in shock. She's like totally... This was hard to watch because it was basically like a domestic violence victim, like who knew that they had to just put up with it one more time to save their kids. Like, and just the way that she was just laying there and like letting it happen was so hard to watch. Because
it was. And I was like, she's gonna give herself away because she's not acting at all like herself. And I was like, I was so stressed. And then we start hearing the pipes, and Shelby knows that means someone else is at the hotel.
I was like, she's going to kill him right now, isn't she?
I know. I was ready for it. And she didn't. So they go into the door that's covered in blood, and she's just like, oh, it's nothing. And it's like, obviously it's something. Like, and she's trying to play it off, and he knocks on the door, and when she opens the door, she sees him and screams and just runs off. And I was like, oh God, she's gonna
I wrote, if Zach hurts Joe again, I will lose my fucking mind right now.
We don't exactly know what happened. They went off into the woods, and we don't know if he found her or not.
I have no idea. I do know that he came back and called Norma a bitch and shoved her to the ground, and I wanted to jump through my TV.
Right. And I put now she has to kill him, but she let him run into the woods instead of trying to kill him, and I don't understand. And next, Norman and Dylan show up, and they are stoked that they found the belt they were looking for. They got rid of the evidence. Everything's fine. They can go to the police, except they didn't know that Shelby was there and had found.
Which Norma was trying to tell them, but then Dylan was like, I'm stealing your son. And she was like, hold on, wait, what?
Right. And he's just like, and Norman's like, did you kill my father? And she's like trying to tell them the story, but also trying to be like, are you really doing this? And she's like, you're gonna break my heart, and like all these things. And it's like, which thing is the priority? I believe Shelby is the priority right now still, but I understand how this has just come out of nowhere, and you're also concerned about what's going to happen to Norman if he leaves.
Yep.
I was like, I get
it. Also, her concern for Norman leaving makes much more sense at the end of the episode.
Yes. And then when they are trying to decide that they're going to leave because they have to get out of there, Shelby's back. And he takes them all inside to sit down.
Okay, but before he says that, he does confirm a theory you had about his connection to this underbelly thing, because he says to Dylan, I know who you work for, put your gun on the ground. And I was like,
Yep, that was wild. And he takes them all inside, and Norman is just blank face and scary. And he's trying to tell them about it. And
okay, but Norman's not quite blank faced at first. Like Norman's reaction to Zach putting the gun to his face was like, he was genuinely like, oh, this man is going to kill me.
Yeah, but he didn't have as much a reaction as the rest. Norma's like, we're not going to tell anybody this and that. And Dylan's like, we're not, like, they're saying all the things you're supposed to say that you think they want to hear, blah, blah, blah. And Norman is just not saying anything.
Well, I don't know that he would even know what to say. Like he
wouldn't. It's best that he didn't say anything.
Right. But also there's literally a gun on the side of my face. I'm probably not saying much either.
Right. And then he starts going after Norma. and we see Norman's losing vision. He like
when called Norma, when Zach called Norma a bitch, I wrote, Norman is going to kill him, just like he killed his father.
Yep.
That was the moment that it actually fully connected that how everything played out.
Yes, I didn't know who was going to kill Shelby until that moment, but I did figure out that he killed his dad earlier.
Yeah, I was like, nope.
So Norman attacks Shelby, and they're tussling, and then he gets hit. He hits his head on the
cabinet or like
cabinet
shelf cabinet or whatever,
and he's bleeding, and he just like kind of drops to the ground, and Dylan is going after they both have their guns out because he took the gun whenever he dropped it.
Yeah.
And so then they both have guns and they're shooting at each other from around the corner, blah, blah, blah.
It reminded me of the scene in Mr. and Mrs. Smith when Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt are like trying to kill each other around the house. Only the stakes were much higher.
Yeah. And they were in love. And Dylan.
The stakes were higher because I couldn't have cared less if anybody died in Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And this one is like if you kill Dylan.
Yes. And so Dylan ended up cornering him because he shot him in the leg and he dropped his gun and he cornered him. And we thought it was the end. And he went to pull the trigger and he was out of bullets. And I was like, no. And so Shelby got the gun and started shooting back. And we had this whole scene. It was wild. And
the whole time this is happening, Norma's like dragging Norman out of the house.
Right. And I was like, Norma, I was like, after all of this, you're still going to leave Dylan? Like, he's been the one protecting you. So I was a little fussy with her then. But then
she called the cops.
Yeah. And she didn't tell them who's trying to kill her. They're like, who's trying to kill you? And she just hangs up. And I was like, why? Why did you not tell them?
Because it was better that she didn't. I think because if she had said that it was Deputy Shelby, how fast would they have actually gotten there?
I guess that's true. But also I was like, if you don't tell them, what if you die? I mean, I knew she wasn't going to, but I was like, what if you die? And then there's no one to tell them that he's the bad guy.
I don't think she ever thought she was going to die. I think that she thought she was going to get Norman out of there and that she was calling the cops to pick up Dylan for her. Really, I think that's what she was doing.
Yeah, you're probably right. But it turns out that she doesn't have her keys. And so they're freaking out. And she's like, we got to walk. We got to do this. And then you hear a gunshot and see a flash in the top window. And it is very suspenseful to figure out who got shot. And I did not see how many episodes anyone was in, so I did not know who got shot. And I mean, I assumed it would be Shelby, but then when he walked out, I couldn't even tell who he was because one of his eyes was blown out.
When he walked out and his eyes were blown out, but I recognized his shirt and I was like, no. Dylan is not dead. I'm not doing this.
I know. Turns out Dylan's fine. He shot Shelby in the eye and then Shelby fell over and died. And good riddance. And so Norman's sitting in the car and Norma gets out and is talking to Dylan and she's, like hugging him or whatever. And he's like, I'm taking Norman with me, all this stuff. And she sits down to tell him the truth. She's like, you have to know the whole story. And we go to a flashback. And it turns out, I didn't realize it, but Sam, the guy who plays the dad, looks more like Dylan than he does like Norman.
I thought that too.
I was like, he looks a lot like Dylan. I was like, you could have picked a different character for the dad. But it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
It's just a bad cast, especially for someone who's like not a huge part of the show.
Right.
Like, it didn't have to be this guy. But it turns out that him and Norma were fighting and Norman emptied out his blender and smacked him over the head with it. And he busted his head open and died. And
how hard did he hit him?
Well, I think he hit his head on something too when he fell. Like I think he hit him hard and then he like hit again
So
on
I was
his
gonna
way
say.
down. Yeah. And so Norma just kind of like panics and she's like, how do I fix this? And Norman's not listening to her. You can tell he's in his like blank state again.
The acting of Freddie Highmore in that scene when he just stood there in the living room staring, I was like, my dude.
It was terrifying.
That was
And
intense.
we see what actually happened was Norma sent Norman to bed so he could rest and not remember anything. And she moved Sam's body and knocked over the cabinet or the work cabinet or whatever. So it looked like that's how he died.
Yeah.
And then Norman found him almost immediately, like within the next half hour or so.
Yeah. And then we see all the scenes that we saw from the first episode.
Yep. And everything makes sense. And I just I love a good full circle. And we go back to Dylan and Norma.
That moment with Dylan and Norma when Dylan just like earnestly is like, so what's wrong with him?
Yeah. And she tells him, she's like, you either have to get out of my way or help me.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're not wrong.
No.
You were trying your best to protect your child. You always have been. And that's the end of the episode.
But like, she's trying her best to protect her child and you always have been. You just ended that episode about Norma fucking Bates.
Yep. And who do you want to punch in the face?
Well, I mean, he only has one eye left, but like, just for the last time, let's punch Zach square in the fucking face.
Yep, I push Shelby as well. He needs it. I don't care if he's dead, he still should be punched.
Yeah.
Who's your MVP?
I know who you're gonna say, and it gives me the ick. But I'm picking Dylan.
I know. For my MVP, I wrote down, but is it Norma? Was she my MVP this episode? I think she was. I mean, I love Dylan. Don't get me wrong. Dylan's always MVP in the world in my heart. But Norma made this episode for me. Yeah. And her acting and Norman's acting, like,
it was
unparalleled. I mean, Dylan's excellent.
Yeah.
But his character doesn't have as much range as the other two.
Right.
And so, like, you don't see.
So he doesn't have to show it as much.
Exactly. So you don't see all of those. I'm sure he could do it. You just don't see it because it's just not part of the story.
Yeah.
But Norma and Norman, like, they both, I mean, are phenomenal. Like, they were definitely the correct people to cast in these roles.
Absolutely.
And I have a few trivia facts for you.
All right. Give it to me.
The psychological term for what Norman has is dissociative amnesia, which I had never heard of. I just assumed it was dissociative identity disorder. So that's a fun one. And
but it is slightly different because I know someone with dissociative identity disorder, and when they dissociate, and it's like theirs is specifically the form of dissociative identity that's called Jekyll-Hyde syndrome, where you basically have like a good self and an evil self. And he remembers everything. Like, it makes him uncomfortable. He gets upset, but he doesn't forget the things that happened.
Pause the recording for like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. A New York number was calling me and I didn't understand why. But it stopped calling me. So I hope it was okay. Anyways, yes. So it does make sense because when he does forget. And
like
I mean,
when he dissociates and then he has no recollection that happened.
So that does make sense.
Yeah.
I just had never heard of it before.
Cool.
A fun sci-fi tie-in, which actually kind of ties into our last Stargate episode, which is fun. Remo and Zhao were both on Continuum.
Oh,
which is fun. Apparently someone else was too, because they said Remo was the third person on the show to be from Continuum, and I don't remember who the other person was. I'm so sorry. But it wasn't in this episode.
No, it wasn't in this episode. I think I want to say it was the guy who played Ethan, but I don't remember. I think we talked about that.
Maybe so. Um, so at this point, all known living members of the Bates family have now killed someone.
Yeah.
Dylan was the last holdout. We just didn't know about Norman.
Right.
So,
technically, Norman was the first one to kill someone.
yes.
He was just the last one we found out about.
We don't know about Norma's past prior to that. Who knows? But my favorite thing in the flashback scene, Norman is watching the psychologist monologue at the end of Psycho. And I didn't catch it. I assumed it was the same show we saw in the first episode, so I didn't even pay attention.
Yeah.
But apparently he was watching the monologue scene from the end of Psycho.
Simon Oakland scene?
Simon Oakland scene. That's the one.
I love that man.
I know. Oh, I was so stoked to see that. That was fun. So that was my favorite fun fact of the show.
I appreciate it.
And
I appreciate a good Simon Oakland tie-in anytime.
I know. I love it. So yeah, that was our Thriller Thursday episode. It was probably the best one so far. The rest of the world thinks it's the best one so far.
It was harder to talk about because so much of it was like suspense. Like there was so much of it that was like just good waiting moments. So how do you discuss that?
I know. That's why I was like trying to pull in the like elements of the episode that were really good, really well done and directed and whatnot. And so it had a lot of that good discussion, not as much
plot.
What happened. Yeah, not as much plot. That's the word. My brain is so fried right now. I'm so sorry. But if you want to tell us more, you want to talk to us, you can find us everywhere at Death and Aliens. You can send us an email at deathandaliens@gmail.com. You can find me at CECloud13.
And you can follow me everywhere at EMKAY_superstar.
And stay tuned for Sci-Fi Sunday.
Bye.